Hello everyone, Braiding Venus here with my very first official art video. I will actually not be doing art today. I've decided to start us off with a resource video. Recently I made the jump from Prismacolor markers to Copics, and I made that decision because I absolutely hate my Prismacolor markers. Loathe them entirely, in fact. Not that I dislike Prismacolor as a brand, because I love their color pencils, and that's why I bought the markers. I figured if I liked one, I'd like the other, because apparently I'm ridiculously brand loyal. But it turns out I jumped on the marker bandwagon way too soon, because at the time all Prismacolor had was the bullet nib. And I freaking hate the bullet nib. You can't blend with it, it's streaky. I know that there are some people that have mastered it, but clearly I am not one of those people. So at first I decided I would just maybe rebuy all of my Prisma markers with the brush nib, because they have that now. But then I started thinking about it, and Prismacolor markers are not refillable, and you can't replace the nibs. So once they dry out or break, it sucks to be you, you have to buy a new marker. And Copics are refillable, and you can change out the nibs. So I went on dickblick.com, which is like my go-to site for affordable art supplies, and I looked up what a case of the Prismacolor markers would cost. And a 200 count case, which is, I think all the colors that Prismacolor makes, is, I think it was $589 for 200 markers. So I figured if I was going to put almost $600 towards markers, go ahead and get the Copics. But then from there I had to figure out what colors I wanted. So at first I went to Michael's and I swatched all the colors they had, which wasn't a lot because Copic has like 358 colors and Michael's only had like 50 of them. So then I went on Google and I looked up must-have marker color lists just from random artists, and I don't have any of them anymore, otherwise I'd link to them. But I just found 5 random lists, and I compared the colors on those lists, and if any color was on 3 or more of those lists, I added it to my list, which only got me like 15, 20-ish colors. So then I went on YouTube and I looked up swatching videos, because apparently that's a huge thing on YouTube because they're everywhere. So I watched a lot of those, picked colors from there, and then I decided I wanted to make sure that my collection was well-rounded because they were expensive, so I was just, try to get the full representation possible with as few colors as possible. So I made sure I got at least 9 colors from each color family. Because if I picked just based on my own personal preference, I would have wound up with all of the blue-greens and like a single yellow. At the end of it all, I wound up with 137 Copic markers. I went a little bit over budget, and I got a mix of the chows and the sketch, because the chows are smaller, so they're cheaper, but they take the same color refills and the same nibs. But they don't come in all the colors that the sketch do. So all of the colors that I could get from my list in the chow, I got in the chow, and then I made up the rest in sketch. So I wound up with 92 chow and 45 sketch. And I got them all from dickblick.com, because at Michael's a single sketch marker was over $8, and on Dickblick it was $5.24 for a sketch and $3.59 for chows. So I couldn't get as many colors as I would have if I've gone with the Prismacolor, but I can get refills and nibs, so overall I'm better off. But as I was figuring my color list out, there was one resource I looked for and could not find. Not on YouTube, not any forum posts or blog posts, and that was actual color comparisons. Like there's plenty of videos that compare the quality of Prisma versus Copic, or the price, or pros and cons, but there was nothing that said, hey, if you like this specific Prismacolor color, you want this Copic one. So I decided I would make it. Obviously, it's not a comprehensive list. I only have 80 Prismas and 136 or 137 Copics, but I was able to come up with a pretty decent sized list. So let's get right to it. All right, let's start with some reds. On the Copic side, I've got crimson and dog rose flower, and then on the Prismacolor side, I have magenta. As you can probably see pretty plainly, the crimson is a bit darker. I only included it because it's in the same family. I mean, it kind of looks like if you layered the magenta a couple times, you could end up with the crimson, but clearly the dog rose flower is a much closer match. Prismacolor blush pink and Copic marker light prawn. They're pretty close to being exact. The blush pink is a little, I guess, pinkier. The light prawn is slightly more peachish, but it's very close. It looks like the light peach is quite a bit different, but in real life it's pretty close to exact. Next we have Deco Pink on the Prismacolor side, and Rose Mint and Rose Red on the Copic marker side. They are darker. I included them because they're in the same basic family. They look good together even if they're not exact matches. You could probably use the Rose Red to shade on the Deco Pink if you had both markers. On the Prismacolor side, Carmine Red, and on the Copic marker side, Prawn. They are pretty much exact. I don't know how closely you can tell on camera, but in real life they're basically exact. Alright, Prismacolor side I have Crimson Red, and on the Copic marker side I have Lipstick Red and Strong Red. Lipstick Red is the closer of the two, but you could get away with Strong Red. Alright, Yellow Orange for Prismacolor, and then Chrome Orange and Honey for Copic marker. Between the two, I'd say Chrome Orange is the closest match, but again, Honey's pretty dang close as well. Next I've got Prismacolor Orange, Copic Apricot. Orange is just slightly darker, but very, very slightly. Next I've got Pale Vermilion, and Cadmium Orange and Chinese Orange. I would say the vermilion is pretty much in between the two. If you layer the Pale Vermilion, you'd get closer to the Chinese Orange. Prismacolor Peach and Copic Light Orange. The cat hair. The peach is slightly pinker than the light orange, but still pretty close. Light peach, pink flamingo, and fruit pink. The pink flamingo is slightly lighter, but other than that, they're basically exactly the same shade. All right, Jasmine and Buttercup Yellow, identical. It might look like the Buttercup Yellow is slightly lighter, because what I've noticed with Prismacolor marker versus Copic is it's like the Prismacolor color, the pigment actually stays on top of the paper, and then the Copic kind of seeps in, so you can kind of see the white of the paper through the marker itself. It's like all of the Copics are like that versus the Prismacolor. I think that's just a quality of Copics in general. But color-wise, it's exactly the same. You can see the white of the paper a little more on the Copic side, but it's the same color. Next we've got Yellow Ochre against Mustard. And the mustard's a little bit darker. If you layered the yellow ochre on itself probably like once, you'd get the mustard. Alright, and these are both Prismacolors, oatmeal and eggshell. Oatmeal's slightly darker, but eggshell's so close that really you only need one. Apologize for the cat hair all over the place. 2 cats, 1 white, 1 black, so no matter what, there's visible cat hair all over everything. Alright, Prismacolor Green Tea versus Copic Sea Green. I'd say the sea green's a tinge darker, but just so very slightly. Alright, Prismacolor Chartreuse versus Barium Yellow, Green Bice, and Yellow Green. I mean, you can see the obvious differences between them. They're not the exact color, but they're in the same color family. So if you liked the Chartreuse, you would like any one of these 3. I mean, you probably use one to shade the other. They're not exact, but they go together. Alright, next I've got Apple Green and Spring Green up against Salad, Apple Green, and Yellowish Green. I'd say the Spring Green is closer to the Salad. The Apple Greens are pretty close together. But you could really substitute one for any of them. This one's the darkest, I'd say, and that one's the lightest. Alright, Grass Green on the Prismacolor side against Meadow Green, Veronese Green, and Forest Green. I'd say the closest match, actually it's probably like an in-between the Meadow and the Veronese, but you could use them all in the same like shading family. You could use Forest Green to shade Grass Green if you had both markers. They go together pretty well, even though clearly they're not exactly the same shade. Right, Jade Green versus Ice Ocean. They are basically identical. Jade Green might be slightly grayer, and Ice Ocean slightly more bluish, but they are, again, really close. Right, Light Aqua and Nile Blue. Light Aqua is a little more bluish. Nile Blue is slightly greener. But still, you could substitute one for the other in a drawing, and it wouldn't look out of place. Aquamarine and Duck Blue. The Aquamarine looks a little darker, but I think I actually layered it a little bit when I was doing the swatch. The Duck Blue slightly greener, I'd say, but still close enough. Parrot Green versus Coral Sea, Mint Green, and Aqua. More cat hair. Clearly, Parrot Green's the darkest. You could use any of the Copics as like a highlight and have Parrot Green be the shadow color, and it would look great. Same family, if not the same shade. True Blue with Process Blue and Tahitian Blue. I'd say Process is the closest match. Next I have Cerulean Blue against Sky. Sky's slightly more purple, I'd say. I've got Light Cerulean with Baby Blue and Pale Grayish Blue. the light cerulean is almost like an in-between shade. Like it's as light as the pale grayish blue, but it's the same shade of blue as baby blue. Got blue slate against light hydrangea. Blue slate's a little bit darker. This is almost the only time this has happened. The color names actually match. The ultramarine blues are pretty much identical. For all the other colors, the names will match, but the colors won't. But in this case, it's the only ones that actually have. There's a mulberry and raspberry. Mulberry is brighter, but you could still substitute one for the other. Light umber and light walnut. I'd say light walnut's just a tad lighter. Next I have lilac and mauve shadow. Lilac is clearly quite a bit darker, but you could use the mauve shadow as the highlight and lilac as the shading color and it'd look good. I got raspberry with garnet and dark red. It's one of those like in-between colors. Like it's the same color as the garnet, but it's almost as dark as the dark red. Alright, light tan and light suntan. Light tan is just slightly darker, but still pretty close. And sienna brown with dark suntan. Alright, burnt ochre against deep orange. The ochre is just slightly darker. Alright, these ones are both Copics. Tinder pink and pure pink. They're so close that really you only need one. Tinder pink slightly darker, but you could just layer pure pink on itself and end up with basically the same color. I'm including it because usually the colors that are really close together are like right next to each other. Like you would expect RV22 and RV23 to be basically the same, but this is RV13 up against RV23, so I went ahead and just thought I'd mention it. Alright, next is parchment with light caramel and brick beige. I'd say the closest match is the parchment and the brick beige. Next is Prismacolor brick beige and cotton pearl. Cotton pearl is probably slightly lighter. So pale peach with floral white and pale fruit pink. And the floral white and the pale fruit pink are close enough that again you could make do with just getting one. You don't really need both. You could layer floral white on itself and end up with the fruit pink. Okay, so I'm going to do something slightly different with the grays. And these are specifically the cool grays, because that's all I had in the Prismacolor. I think that's all Prismacolor makes is the cool grays. I could be wrong about that, because clearly I don't have all the Prismacolor markers, but I don't remember them having a warm and a cool gray set. Don't take my word for it. I clearly don't know what I'm talking about as far as that goes. And I'm going to order these by darkness, but they're going to be mixed together, but you'll see what I mean in a sec here. First I got Prismacolor Cream, which is basically white, Cool Gray 10%, which is Prismacolor, Cool Gray 20%, Brick White. They're all basically white. The Brick White's just slightly darker than Cool Gray 20%, but just barely. And then Cool Gray C1, which is Copic. So Cool Gray C1 in Copic is darker than Cool Gray 20 in Prismacolor. And Cool Gray C2, which is Copic again. Cool Gray 30%, which is Prismacolor. Cool Gray 3C3, which is Copic. Cool Gray 40%, which is Prismacolor. Cool Gray 50%, which is Prismacolor. Cool Gray 5 in Copic. And I don't have Cool Gray 60% in Prismacolor because it died on me and I couldn't rejuvenate it. So next is Cool Gray 70%, which is Prismacolor. Cool Gray 7 in Copic. And then Cool Gray 80% in Prismacolor. And then I am running out of room, but here's Cool Gray 90 in Prismacolor. Do you can actually see it there at the bottom? Yeah, you can see it. That one is a Prismacolor. But you can see how the colors relate to each other. And lastly, I'm going to do the blacks, because I thought they were kind of interesting. So Prismacolor has 3 blacks: black, jet black, and warm black. And then the only black in Copic that I have is just black 100. And they are all 4 different colors. The Copic black doesn't match any of the Prismacolors. It is the truest black out of all of them. Jet black in Prismacolor is almost blue. Warm black in Prismacolor is almost a dark brown. I don't even know what I classify Prismacolor black as, because the Copic one is the true black. That is, if I'm going to pick a black, that's the one I'm going to pick, because it's actually black. Alright, and that is all that I have. Well, there you have it. I hope this video was at least somewhat helpful. I know it wasn't all that riveting with just my voice and swatches, but I promise my next video will have actual art in it. And if you're interested in seeing that, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!